I learned of Manon Dubé 20 years ago. I was struggling to read a French article about Teresa's murder, and there in the last paragraph, it mentioned the Dubé case. And it wasn't like today. You couldn't access information anywhere, anytime. You didn't have newspaper archives available like BenQ at your fingertips. Yet you had to dig for information, a lot of it on microfiche. And like the writer in this La Tribune article, Pierre Saint Jacques, I was struck by the similarities between the two cases. Teresa found near Compton and Manon near Ayers Cliff. Both suspicious deaths. Both went missing on a Friday. The bodies discovered both on Good Friday. Fertile ground for the suspicious mind. I would learn of Louise Cameron's murder in a similar manner. Over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of static, a lot of confusing information about the Manon Dubé case. And I'd like to take some time to revisit the facts about her disappearance and death. Also, since working on the book Wish You Were Here, more digital archives from the Eastern Townships became available online, so there's a lot of new information that became instantly accessible. And I'd like to give an outline of the Dubé case, incorporating this new information without a whole lot of stops along the way to apologize for stuff. I use words like dump site and this, and I know it's a 10-year-old girl, but I really don't have time for a whole lot of fake reverence in these things. Speaking in hushed tones and precious loved ones. My trump card for all of that is that I'm the brother of a victim who died a horrible death, period. So I don't have a whole lot of time for that nonsense. This is Who Killed Teresa. This is the setup. 10-year-old Manon Dubé and her sister, younger sister Chantal, had been sledding in the parking lot of a Caisse Populaire bank on Rue Belvedere in Sherbrooke, Quebec. This was Friday, January 27th, 1978. Around 7:30 p.m. that night, the pair began to walk home. When they reached the intersection of Union and Craig, just in front of a school, École Saint-Joseph Elementary School, Chantal decides to run the remainder of the way because she's cold. And Manon Dubé never arrives at her house on Rue Bienville. Less than 2 days later, Manon's mother, Jeanine Dubes, received a telephone call at 3 p.m. on a Sunday from a man who told her, if you want to see your daughter again, it will cost you $25,000. Sherbrooke had been frenzied with kidnapping mania. The prior year, a Caisse Populaire credit manager named Charles Marion had been held captive for 82 days, then the longest kidnapping in Canadian history. Marion was eventually freed. Many believed he staged the ordeal. If you want a detailed account of the Marion affair, it's in Wish You Were Here. And at the time of Dubé's disappearance, Quebec's Justice Minister Marc-André Bedard, who we've talked about before, was pressured to make inquiries as to whether even the Sûreté de Quebec was involved in the cover-up in the Marion kidnapping. So not surprisingly, the Dubé ransom phone call was largely written off as a hoax. And I say, maybe? Just keep that in your back pocket. Search team with tracking dogs. We know they used the dog Rex. It's like one dog traveling across Quebec. His name was Rex, and he was involved in all these cases. And his handler, I forget his handler's name. It says tracking dogs. I think it was a dog, one dog, Rex. So they combed the woods to the west of Sherbrooke around Mont Bellevue. Police go door to door along Rue Bienville looking for clues. Chantal Dubé, so the younger sister, told police that she and a cousin had been followed by a strange Buick during the previous week. And several neighbors' parents, questioned by police, said their children had been approached by strangers in recent months. I warned her of strangers, Manon's mother said, no matter if it was a man or a woman, if it was for money or candy, she was to turn and run home. Jeanine Dubé had been a widow for a little over a year. She told police she was worried that whoever abducted Manon might be aware of a small amount of insurance money collected at the time of her husband's death. When last seen, Manon Dubé was wearing a navy blue snowsuit, salmon pink scarf, a toque, it's a hat, red mittens, and snow boots. By February 1978, the police had turned to psychics for assistance. Two Montreal seers told police to search near the Lowney's chocolate factory. A hypnotist said Dubé was being held in a house on Rue Dunant, which is a continuation of Rue Union. There's a lot. There's something for everyone in this in today's podcast. So if you're new to the Dubé story, it's a great overview. If you know the Dubé story very well, trust me, there's facts. And then if you're number one or two, you may find some of those facts very, very detailed because they're very specific to Sherbrooke. And I have good reason to provide that. And that's why I talk, some people listening will know why I specify Rue Dunant, the continuation of Union. So there was this psychic named Le Grand Henri. He's like a local celebrity. He announced he would make a statement on the Dubé affair, but he needed a 24-hour lead-up before doing so. he needed to generate a little press, a little interest before weighing in on things. And then finally, an anonymous Sherbrooke donor came forward offering a $1,000 reward to anyone who could help police solve the case. Interesting. I wonder who that was. Years later, Chantal Dubé would recount how at the time she thought her sister Manon had played a trick on her and took another route home. But this was no magic trick. Kids at Chantal's school, kids can be cruel. They taunted her, telling Chantal that Manon had already been found dead and tied to a tree. In a bizarre twist, this is exactly what happened half a decade later in 1983 when 5-year-old Melanie Decan was found murdered gagged and tied to a tree trunk near Drummondville, Quebec. Police again appealed to the people of Sherbrooke for assistance. This is from an article in February. If everyone cooperates by searching through their garbage bins, under their veranda, in their yards, we will be able to cover the entire city in a very short time. Police flatly denied rumors that the body of 10-year-old Dube had already been found near Rock Forest in late February. Finally, on Good Friday, March 24th, 1978, the body of Manon Dubé was discovered beside a creek that crossed an isolated road, gravel road, leading to Kingscroft, half a mile from the village of Massawippi on Highway 143. To teenagers, to young people from Montreal visiting for the weekend with their parents, they made the discovery in the stream. This stream was about 100 feet from a gravel road. Manon's body lay frozen in the ice. She was dressed in her navy blue snowsuit, salmon pink scarf, and snow boots. One red mitten was missing. Manon had a deep gash on her forehead. So this site was about 19 miles south of Sherbrooke. Manon's head was submerged in the water while her feet rested on the bank. The body had been trapped in the ice for almost 2 months. There were no signs, exterior signs of physical violence. The wound visible on the forehead could have been caused by the ice from the stream. Lieutenant Detective Alphée Leblanc of the Criminal Investigations Division of the Sherbrooke Municipal Police had been leading the investigation since the beginning, was called to the scene along with Sergeants Pierre Marceau and Caporal Roch Goudreau, both of the Sûreté du Québec's criminal investigations. We know that name. The place where Manon Dubé's body was found was 100 feet from a wooden bridge. Telephone wires ran along the side of the road, and a few miles away there were pylons of a Hydro-Quebec substation near Route 143. For a deep dive, I didn't go into this in the text. Dubé had an uncle who worked for Hydro-Quebec. And for those who know the story, the property eventually was divulged belonged to the Dubé family where she was found. Or there was an association with the Dubé family with that property. So this stream flowed past a chalet, 2 picnic tables, and a swing. On the other side of the road, there was another chalet on a small hill. The site was quiet, a winding dirt road, still a winding dirt road. I've been there, sheltered from prying eyes, and the bridge in the hollow of a valley, the little bridge across the stream. As Pierre Francoeur reported for La Tribune, to take this road in the middle of winter, you really had to know about it. Now, in this same article, Francoeur offers a theory, and it's a pretty good theory. This is from La Tribune on Monday, March 27th, 2 days after Dubé was found. The girl was dressed in the same clothes as when she disappeared, only her toque and one of her mittens were missing. Where were they left? Have they been washed away by the river? Left at the scene of the crime? We can also wonder if the little girl would not have simply been the victim of a hit and run. The driver, distraught, would have decided to pick up her body when very few people roamed the area of Bienville and Union Streets. That would explain why the little girl was found dressed. A sex maniac wouldn't have bothered to get his victim dressed, to put her boots on. Moreover, it was easy for the motorist or the attacker to take the road incognito in the direction of Lennoxville and Ayers Cliff. From Bienville and Union Streets, we quickly arrive at the Côte de l'Acadie, then to Wellington Street, then towards Lennoxville. Leave aside for the moment the point about the sex maniac. We'll return to that. What I find interesting is the escape route. The route I've often imagined is Union to Belvedere, and south on Belvedere, which turns into Chemin McDonald, and then 143 south to Massawippi. This route would take you past the location where my sister's wallet would eventually be found 13 months later. Francoeur suggests a more efficient route. Continue the other direction on Rue Union to Wellington. And Wellington, as previously discussed, is interesting because of all the gang activity that had been occurring there throughout the 1970s. But then again, it's Sherbrooke in an era when this was a very small place. You can make all sorts of geographic inferences. They don't necessarily mean anything. Or do they? There's something else strange about this La Tribune article. The first paragraph tells us that Lieutenant Detective Alphée Leblanc of the Sherbrooke Police will attend the autopsy to be performed in Montreal. And in the first La Tribune article, a couple of days prior, we're told that both Leblanc and Roch Goudreau of the SQ were called to the scene, tasked to the case. And then there's this very bizarre notice on the same page as this Dubé story in a column called Carnet King Wellington. Carnet King Wellington was like a society column in La Tribune. Think Walter Winchell for the townships crowd. It told you what was going on around town. And here on the same page where La Tribune is reporting on this very delicate matter of the death of a 10-year-old girl is this notice that the two lead investigators wagered a bet with each other over who was the last club to win the Stanley Cup before the Montreal Canadiens hockey dynasty. And my question is, what is this doing there? I mean, is it just a case of carelessness in the layout of the newspaper? Once again, Sherbrooke is a small place. If memory serves, 82,000 people at that time. Detectives from two different police agencies can certainly be friends, but couldn't this have waited? Why put it in the paper at the moment you want the public to earn the trust of their police forces? When you should be instilling confidence that they are serious about their work and they know what they're doing. Pierre Francoeur ends his article by stating that the Dube incident was, quote, the first of its kind to occur in the eastern townships. Not only is this statement blatantly untrue, it wasn't even the first of its kind to occur in the area where Dube's body was discovered. In the summer of 1974, a 53-year-old school taxi driver was charged with the statutory rape of an 8-year-old girl. Described as bald, pot-bellied bachelor Chester Hartwell. Yes, his name really is Chester. worked as I say, as a school taxi driver. He's charged with transporting young students from their homes to school. Hartwell received a 2-year sentence for this for this rape of an 8-year-old. So he would have been out by 1976. At sentencing, he was described as nonviolent. He was said to lure his victims with gifts. And the rape occurred in the Ayers Cliff region, less than 5 minutes from where Manon Dubé was found. Recall Jeanine Dubes' warning to her daughters not to take candy from strangers. Also, when first approached to offer comments on the discovery of her daughter, Jeanine Dubes stated, "There are very nasty people." She didn't say unfortunate accident. She didn't say, thank God now she's at peace, she can rest. She said, there are very nasty people. On March 28th, 1978, police made a bold statement. Manon Dubé was not sexually assaulted. Rather brazen to be saying that a little over 3 days from the discovery of the body. The details were that the autopsy did not reveal the exact cause of death, but they, quote, absolutely eliminate any thesis of sexual assault, rape, or sexual act. According to Lieutenant Detective Elphé Leblanc, who attended the autopsy in Montreal, accompanied by his betting buddy Roch Goudreau, quote, these hypotheses, which had been envisaged from the start, have now been definitively ruled out. Leblanc then went on into even greater detail of his reasoning. Not only was Manon Dubé dressed in the same clothing she was wearing when she disappeared from her neighborhood, the scarf she was wearing was wrapped around her neck in the same manner her mother would have dressed her. And she was wearing the same plastic bags on her feet under her snow boots to protect her from the cold. Anyone who lives within the vicinity of the 49th parallel knows exactly what I'm talking about. It had been reported that Manon was missing her toque, but even that was recovered, leaving only one missing red mitten. The red mitten is discussed, and wish you were here. So all of this is new information, as I say, that only recently became available digitally, but it really, shucks, could have clarified many questions when we reinvestigated the Dube case in 2002. One of geographic profiler Kim Rosmo's questions had been, was the child undressed and then dressed again? Rosmo was also implying that Quebec police lacked investigative insight if they couldn't imagine a sexual predator who redressed his victims. It's a common MO. Yet back in 1978, LeBlanc definitively answered why she was apparently never addressed, and somewhat satisfactorily. And it's not as if by 2002, when we were poking about, LeBlanc had become some retired, disinterested party. Far from it. He was still working with the Sherbrooke Police. In fact, in 2001, the year before, he conducted his own reinvestigation of the Dube case. So why not clarify this matter when it came up so prominently in the local press in 2002? And for me, did investigators finally understand by 2002 what they failed to grasp in 1978? that it did not take undressing to commit a sexual assault. My problem with all of this is that even though factually there's no evidence of a sexual assault, like the Teresa Allor case, the circumstances suggest a sexual predator. Maybe Dubé was the target of a sexual abduction, but the car accidentally hit her. And the offender then had to change his plan. Their plan. They improvised. And I say this because contrary to Elfé Leblanc's reassurances, the first thing the coroner thought on March 24th, 1978, the night she was found, was sexual murder. And we know this because, like the initial coroner report in Teresa's case that noted strangulation, we have the coroner's document that states possibility of a sexual murder. So I find it odd that there are two instances now in 1978 where the coroner ruled one thing, yet by the time the bodies are examined in Montreal, the pathologist, who was the same pathologist in both cases, Dr. André Lazan, comes away with inconclusive findings. And in both cases, by the way, Corporal Roch Goudreau of the Sûreté de Québec made the trip to Montreal to be present at the autopsies. It's striking because today the SQ continues to deny Roch Goudreau was in charge of the Dube case. And I say, if he wasn't in charge of the case, then why is he the only SQ officer present at the autopsy? And if you think that I have an overactive imagination, my thoughts are precisely what were on the minds of everyone in Sherbrooke that winter in 1978, as attested by La Tribune reporter Pierre Saint-Jacques. This is from the March 28th article. The case was not talked about much. So often half words were used. Many firmly believed in a painful story of sexual doom and murder. Saint-Jacques then launches into a fiction, candidly, that by the La Tribune's own previous writings is completely implausible. He says the possibility of a car accident, of the panic-stricken driver who initially wants to take the victim back to the hospital, and then we see the latter's condition will be considered and preferred for a host of reasons: state of intoxication, lack of insurance, stolen vehicles, stupid negligence at the wheel, getting away from the city, and getting rid of the body in a way we know exists. And I would counter that with, if by their own reporting, few people roamed the area of Bienville and Union Streets at the time of the day of the abduction, then what's a car doing there? Unless, of course, like the Buick cited by Manon's sister Chantal, it was stalking her. Why does a girl who was warned by her mother repeatedly to be careful, not to take candy from strangers, to turn and run, who was walking on the sidewalks with her sister, suddenly run into the streets and accidentally get hit? Unless she was being chased. And the most important question, if it's a hit and run, why not hit and run? Why transport a body nearly 20 miles away and deposit it by a stream in a secluded area? This, by the way, continues to be the most irritating, annoying, troubling, concerning question even the Sûreté de Québec ponder to this day themselves. It's always good to laugh. But by April, Le Grand Henri was back in the papers telling the people of the townships, "I never believed in the story of a sex maniac. To me, he's a guy who's lost his mind." I'm not really sure what the difference is. Le Grand Henri claimed, "I would have found her if the police would have listened, and how he always knew she would be located on Easter weekend near a stream." When then asked to assist with the composite drawing of the murderer, quote, "the murderer," those are La Tribune's words, Henri stated that he was no longer able to assist because, since the police did not cooperate, he was no longer in a favorable state of mind. The final determination as to what happened to Manon Dubé was left in the hands, as it always is, of coroner Jean-Pierre Rivard. Tricky business, as nothing, not an autopsy or chemical analysis, was able to pinpoint what killed the 10-year-old girl on the night of January 27th, 1978. Experts did not know whether Manon hit her head at the location where she was last seen. Did she fall? Was she hit? Or whether the injury was sustained when she was thrown into the stream near Massawippi. Another theory was that the intense cold may have caused the gash on her forehead, effectively forcing her skull to crack. Manon had bruises on her arms and thigh, but even these raised further questions and could have been caused because she had been playing with her sister behind the Caisse Populaire. Despite all the confusing information, by late April, investigators were now coming back to one nagging theory: the possibility of, quote, "the abduction with a view to commit a sexual act, an abduction which would have taken a turn that the author is found confused and could not have carried out his dark plans." There are good reasons to believe Dubé was never assaulted. Reasons up until now never revealed, so I'm going to reveal them. In Wish You Were Here, I wrote that Dubé had no broken bones. And it turns out that this wasn't true. Recently, I spoke with a retired officer from the Sherbrooke Police. According to them, Dubé's lower body injuries were consistent with being struck by a vehicle, end quote, meaning her legs were broken. That has never been revealed. I can understand 40 years ago, 45 years ago almost, using this as a holdback, but why today the police wouldn't disclose this information may not make any sense to me. Wouldn't it help to clarify and refocus the Dubé investigation to know this? It still doesn't rule out the intention to sexually assault, but it would help to know that this intention was probably never acted upon. On May 17th, 1978, Coroner Jean-Pierre Rivard made his determination, and there is a copy of this document online. The death of Manon Dubé was violent, and the verdict rendered is that of violent death, with the criminal negligence of one or more undetermined persons. May 17th, 1978. So, violent death by a stranger or strangers, and obviously the use of a car, and Manon's sister's testimony that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, the children had been pursued by a strange car. Though I suggested that you stop considering Luc Gregoire as the number one suspect, I didn't say stop considering him altogether. Was Gregoire possibly one of the persons in that car that was chasing a woman down the road in 1978? Maybe. always allow 25% for what we do not know. So there are many reasons I still consider Gregoire a strong suspect in the participation in some of the cases from the townships in the late 1970s. And those reasons, he had a history of sexual assaults and other offenses in the region at that time. He went on to become a murderer, killing Lanny Silva in Calgary in 1993. Trolling victims in cars was part of his MO. Because of his known military background, it is thought that Gregoire, for a time, trained with the Sherbrooke Hussars. One of the hardest things to account for is why Dube's killer would have hit her in Sherbrooke, but then deposited her body in a secluded area 19 miles south in the Kingscroft area. Well, 1 year prior to her disappearance in March 1977, the Sherbrooke Hussars were doing winter training exercises near Mills Barnston, sometimes called Barnston West, which is 5 miles from the Dube dump site. So a civilian might find the stream along Chemin de Rousseau isolated, but to a military cadet playing weekend warrior, it might have been quite familiar. As Pierre Francoeur wrote in La Tribune, to take this road in the middle of the winter, you really had to know about it. And a Sherbrooke Hussar would have. And these training activities were regular occurrences for the military cadets. All through the late 1970s, they underwent training exercises in isolated areas throughout the townships. In 1979, they even rolled through the streets of Lennoxville. For these reasons and others we will get into, I still consider Luc Gregoire as one of the suspects in Dube's death. I say suspect because Luc Gregoire is dead. If he were still alive, I would refer to him as a person of interest. I will leave you with this today, something to ponder on until next time. With coroner Jean-Pierre Rivard's final determination in May 1978, the Dube investigation was officially placed on hold indefinitely and would only be, quote, reopened if new elements are added to the investigation, end quote. The matter was closed, and La Tribune wondered, will we ever know the bottom line of this whole affair? This is the question that we can timidly ask today. It wouldn't take long to receive new elements, though at the time I doubt anyone noticed a possible connection between the death of Manon Dubé and the murder of an 18-year-old drug runner, Carole Fecteau, whose body was discovered naked in a stream in East Hereford, Quebec, 1 month later in 1978. Though La Tribune did pick up on the geographic significance of the matter. This is from July 4th, 1978, La Tribune article on Carole Fecteau. This is the first murder this year to occur in the territory covered by the SQ district of Estrie, except for the discovery of the body of Manon Dubé on Good Friday, March 24th, in the ice of a stream half a mile from the locality of Massawippi, near the road which connects this place to Kingscroft. The murder of Carole Fecteau is a story for another day. I still first have to provide you with a few more pieces of this puzzle. This has been Who Killed Teresa? I'm your host, John Allure, Have yourselves a great, great day.